Montmorency and his daughter Gabrielle live isolated in the Swiss mountains, away from corrupted society. They live in peace until the Count Angelo d'Aubigny arrives, requesting shelter. Gabrielle has never met another man before other than her father, who distrusts Angelo. Angelo justifies his motives as honest and is accepted to stay, still residing in their home weeks later. Gabrielle and Angelo have grown attached to each other, but Gabrielle is confused by her feelings. Angelo is attracted to her innocence but doesn't love her. Gabrielle shares her feelings and is embarrassed and isolates herself, attracted to her display of innocence. Angelo pursues Gabrielle and asks her to run away with him, which she refuses. Angelo seduces her and Gabrielle mourns her loss of innocence. Angelo leaves but promises he will stay in touch, gifting a gold medallion. Eventually his letters stop. Madame Bertrand lives alone in a cottage nearby. She is concerned about Gabrielle, now physically taken with grief following Angelo's departure. Gabrielle discovers she is pregnant, and cannot conceal it from Montmorency. Blaming himself for exposing Gabrielle to corruption, he is stricken by a melancholic madness and dies. Udharan Chinh. Gabrielle has a girl, Angus, but is continually melancholic, wishing to punish herself for sinning. 6 months later, feeling that protection for her daughter can only be provided by a father, Gabrielle leaves in search of Angelo. She leaves Angus with Bertrand with the medallion. Then, disguised as a man, leaves. Gabrielle finds the address she wrote letters to. Angelo is still there, and disguised as Eugene, Gabrielle becomes Angelo's page. Angelo confides in Eugene that he has a mistress, Oriana, which pains Gabrielle. She resolves to help Angelo and wean him of his mistress. Udharan Chinh. Oriana grows in fondness to Eugene, who acts a go-between, delivering letters and flowers. During a visit, Gabrielle overhears a conversation between Oriana and her brother, Fiorenzo da Vinci, who is actually her lover, who plot to kill Angelo and steal his wealth. Protective of Angelo, Gabrielle sabotages their plans. Oriana grows to fear Fiorenzo and fall in love with Eugene. Gabrielle visits Oriana, who confesses Fiorenzo's new murderous plan. Fiorenzo had hired assassins, who Gabrielle tricks into murdering Fiorenzo instead. Gabrielle becomes wounded and Angelo carries her home. Discovering her true identity, his passion for her is reignited. Oriana feels humiliated after discovering Eugene's identity and is filled with vengeance. Udharan Chinh. Angelo appears to be a changed man. They stay together for 2 years and have a son, Felix. They ask for Angus to be sent to them, but Bertrand refuses until they are married. One day Angelo runs into a distressed young woman, Paulina, whose father is forcing her to marry an abusive man. Angelo promises to speak to her father and agree to meet again. Angelo feels guilty upon reflection but does not tell Gabrielle. They meet several times, and Gabrielle notices a change in Angelo's behavior. When Angelo and Paulina meet again, Paulina says she noticed a female figure following him home, which Angelo fears to be Gabrielle. Though he respects Gabrielle, he decides that he loves Paulina. We discover Paulina to be Oriana's vindictive sister. They plotted together to sabotage Angelo's relationship with Gabrielle. Trusting Angelo, Gabrielle claims she had no reason to suspect anything, but runs into Oriana and becomes more suspicious. Udharan Chinh. Angelo leaves Gabrielle a letter and money before leaving with Paulina, but eventually realizes he was deceived. Paulina leaves him, and Angelo writes to Gabrielle but does not hear a response. Gabrielle proudly refused Angelo's money, wishing to perish and suffer for her sins. She wishes she had listened to Bertrand and is angry not having heard from Angelo, whose letters were blocked. Gabrielle travels to London, but is denied shelter as she is unmarried. Desperate on the streets, a man gives her money. His face is revealed and she realizes it is Angelo. Gabrielle faints from hunger. Angelo takes her and Felix home. Gabrielle forgives him but is wary of his promises. Udharan Chenne. 5 years lapse. Angus is still not with her mother. Bertrand has married Buffet, and after a year without communication, Gabrielle learns that Buffet became increasingly abusive towards Bertrand and Angus. Unhappy, Angus ran away. Angelo and Gabrielle try to find Angus without success. Milbera was hired as a nanny to watch over Felix but stayed with the family as he grew older. Felix is now 10 years old. Milbera is jealous of Gabrielle and tries to make Angelo fall in love with her. Gabrielle observes Milbera's intentions and asks for her dismissal. Felix misses Milbera and resents his mother, which impacts on Gabrielle's physical and mental health. She is extremely lonely and melancholic, practically bedridden. Milbera encourages Felix to distrust his mother as she is still not married. Felix and Gabrielle argue, and he leaves with Milbera. Angelo, now a gambler, runs out of money. Milbera gives him alcohol, causing him to pass out. Milbera takes him home, steals jewels and runs away with Felix. Angelo wakes realizing what he has allowed to happen. Overcome with guilt, he confesses to Gabrielle. They have now lost their house to Angelo's gambling. Gabrielle confesses her kindness is driven by her suffering and duty and not love for Angelo. Both are ill from despair and poverty. Gabrielle tries to sell her jewels, only to find that Angelo replaced them with fake ones after gambling them away. She works as a painter, but is so weak and slow that she is fired. They lie together in the house and wait for death. A message reaches them saying the man they lost the house to has died and the house is returned to them. Angelo proposes and Gabrielle accepts, though not through love. They move to the coast hoping it will help Gabrielle's health. Gabrielle sees the ghost of her father and sees it as a warning of her death. She asks Angelo to find their children and later dies. Angelo blames himself for Gabrielle's death and travels to France. He finds Milbera but Felix had left and stole from her. He then visits Bertrand to find out more information about Angus, which proves fruitless. On his way to England he runs into a beautiful woman who falls. Angelo takes her home and visits her most days, trying to find out if she is as virtuous as she claims to be. Angelo grabs her and as she tries to break free a medallion falls out of her pocket. It is Angus. Udharan Chenne. Angus details her story. She had run away from Buffet and been wandering the mountains when a baron and baroness took her in after their daughter. She stayed with them for 7 years. They had a son, Darlowitz, who she fell in love with. Darlowitz was already promised to marry by his parents but slept with Angus before marriage. After arguing with the baron, Angus leaves. She returned to Switzerland to find Bertrand. Discovering that she had died, Angelo blames himself for Angus' loss of innocence. She says she cannot find another husband, as she feels wedded to Darlowitz. Angelo sends her to a convent in Italy and visits daily. Darlowitz appears in his house. Now a widower, Angelo agrees that Darlowitz can see Angus from afar, but when Darlowitz calls after her, Angelo and Darlowitz fight. Darlowitz is fatally stabbed. Angus sees everything. Angelo flees to Rome. He receives a letter to say that Angus is in deep melancholy. He is thankful she will die an angel. Whilst traveling, Angelo's horse falls and he is robbed. He directs a group of men to the direction of the robber and continues to the next town. He learns the robber has been caught and goes to his trial. The robber is Felix. He visits Felix, who asks for forgiveness, but Angelo says he is to blame. Angelo sits with his pistols lamenting over what he has done to those around him and commits suicide.